Well, after last week's first 9 chapters in Chronicles, there with all the genealogy and that, we looked at chapter 10 here. We touched on it a little bit. That's basically where it talked a bit about Saul. Basically, he was the first king that God appointed to his children of Israel. And we concluded after reading, looking at chapter 10 there, Saul started out good, didn't he? He started out being the man that God wanted him to be. But then, after a while, he got kind of full of himself, didn't he? And he ended up not really relying upon God anymore. He pretty much decided that he would just rely upon himself or other people, or in this case, a medium. And things went downhill from there, didn't they? He didn't have his faith in God. He had his faith in things around him, people around him. And as we read in chapter 10 there, basically what happened? He started losing battles, didn't he? Battles weren't being won. Philistines were chasing him, killed his 2 sons. He was overrun, and out of desperation, he asked his armor bearer to run him through with his own sword. But he didn't, did he? Armor bearer wouldn't do that. Why? Because he was a king. You don't just kill the king even though he says kill him. Exactly. He was the king. So armor bearer said, "No, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it." So what's Saul do? He turns the sword around on himself and falls upon it and is dead. And of course, then a lot of this has been kind of, I guess, condensed in the Chronicles. You can read a lot about it more in Kings and Samuel. But basically, in 10 verse 8, the next day when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They stripped him and took his head and his armor and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news among their idols and their people. They put his armor in the temple of their gods and hung up his head in the temple of Dagon. It's pretty gruesome, isn't it? This is an anointed king of God. And the reason this is happening is, once again, why? He didn't put his faith in God. He thought he could do it himself. Once again, it's a heavy-duty reminder. Where is our faith to be today? Where should we be putting it? It's really easy to put our faith in people. People that are educated maybe more than we are. People that are well-known. They have a reputation. It's pretty easy to do that, isn't it? That's basically what Saul did. And this is the end of it then. This is how it ended with him. And it's, I done a little looking at that, proclaiming the news there in end of 9 among their idols and their people. That word, the root word of that, I guess, is like proclaiming good news. The same type as we see in the New Testament when they proclaim the good news. It's hard to think that they would be proclaiming good news at the anointed king, Saul, being dead. But who is next in line? David. He's the one that God wants in there now, isn't he? And he's hoping that David will prove him right that he will put all of his faith in God. As we look at starting in chapter 11, well, actually, at the end of chapter 10, in verse 13, Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the words of the Lord, and even consulted a medium for guidance, and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. So that's the progression. Who's the one that anointed David to be king? Samuel. And when did he do that? I mean, we're going to start out in 11 here, basically as David is on the throne. But when did Samuel anoint David to be king? When he was a young man. We're going to pick up in 11 when he's already on the throne. But when he was a young man, he was still a shepherd. He was the youngest. All the other, remember when he came to, was it Jacob? All of his sons? When he came to them, he looked at all of them, didn't he? Jacob was hoping, okay, it's going to be my oldest. He's the best. Not him. Well, the next one down, he's got some awful good attributes in that. Through all of his sons. And yet, what'd Samuel say? Don't you have another one? Don't you have one more son somewhere? Oh, he's out taking care of the sheep. That's the youngest one. He's out there. He's not a fighting man. He's a shepherd. When you compare that to the time when Jesus came, how much of a parallel is that? How much of a parallel is David with Jesus when he came? Jesus wasn't what they thought, right? They wanted a fighting man. They wanted a king. They wanted somebody that had royalty behind them, that had some clout. And how did Jesus come? Prince of Peace, born in a manger. Shepherds came to watch him, to look at him. They were proclaiming good news at that time too, weren't they? He has come. They never thought that David would amount to anything. And even clear up until the time that he defeated Goliath on the battlefield, they still didn't think much of him, did they? Yep, he went running to him. So, and of course we can look at all of the things that David did wrong. We can look at the situation with Bathsheba, killing Uriah. We can look at all of those things and say, well, he wasn't that good of a guy. Well, you're absolutely right. He wasn't. But what was his attitude? When he realized all that he'd done, what was his attitude then? He was humbled before God, wasn't he? He knew what he'd done wrong. Is he any different than us? Is he any different than us? Not at all. We mess up, don't we? We can get to that point where we think we got it all under control. We've got the tiger by the tail and we're going to go for a ride. But yet God has ways of humbling us. Sometimes they're pretty drastic. In David's case, it was pretty drastic, wasn't it? The loss of his son. That would be pretty devastating. But yet, through that, he became known as the apple of God's eye. So in chapter 11 here, we're going to pick up David becoming king over Israel. In chapter 11, all Israel came together to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, even while Saul was king, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns. And the Lord your God said to you, 'You will shepherd my people, Israel, and you will become their ruler.'" Well, there's a lot said in those first two verses there. All Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood." They're backing him 100%, aren't they? As they say in the next line there, "In the past, even while Saul was king, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns." Even when Saul was king, they still recognized David as being faithful to God, because David was winning. What's the famous line that they sang whenever David came into the town after a battle? Saul killed his thousands, David killed 10,000. That would be a little humiliating for Saul, wouldn't it? I mean, this young guy taking over his position. That's why there was a lot of animosity between them, a lot of jealousy. That's why Saul wanted to kill him. He didn't like that idea. He still considered himself the anointed king, didn't he? And yet, he had no reason to follow God. He thought, I don't need to have faith in him. I'm the anointed one. And yet, as it continues on, we see that David is basically outdoing Saul in every avenue. "And the Lord your God said to you, 'You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler.'" Once again, New Testament. What is Jesus depicted as? A shepherd. A shepherd. In how many instances in the New Testament does he say, "I am the shepherd, you are the sheep"? The shepherd takes care of his sheep. Same thing here. David is going to be taking care of Israel. He is going to be the shepherd of them. Verse 3, "And when all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, he made a compact with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel, as the Lord had promised through Samuel." So basically, they're in full agreement of what Samuel did. They've anointed him. He is going to be their king. Verse 4, "David and all the Israelites marched to Jerusalem," that is Jebus. "The Jebusites who lived there said to David, 'You will not get in here.' Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, the city of David." They said, "You're not going to come in," didn't they? "You're not going to take over this city." This was a well-fortified city, wasn't it? Jerusalem. It's got walls around it. And yet, how did David handle this? Sounds like pretty easily, right? "You will not get in here." Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion. David had said, "Whoever leads the attack on the Jebusites will become commander-in-chief." Joab, son of Zeruiah, went up first, and so he received the command. David then took up residence in the fortress, and so it was called the City of David. He built up the city around it, from the supporting terraces and to the surrounding wall, while Joab restored the rest of the city. And David became more and more powerful because the Lord Almighty was with him. When the Lord is with you, there's nothing that is impossible to do, isn't it? You can do anything you can. As long as you are relying upon the Lord and putting Him first, having faith in Him, He'll prepare you for anything that comes along, won't He? If it's His will, of course, yes. I mean, it's not going to be anything that we think. It's going to be according to what He wants. Evidently, he wanted Jerusalem to be the city of David, didn't he? Because David had no problem going in and taking it.
The problem today is some people read that and think, I can do anything I want and God will be with me.
Exactly.
And that's not how it works.
No.
He can do anything he wants.
Exactly. That's the key. I can do anything that he wants if I keep my faith in God. But when we get that attitude, I can do anything that I want, it's kind of falling into what Saul did, wasn't it? That's whatever Saul wanted to do, that's what he wanted to do. And then when you take having faith in God out of the equation, you can't do anything for God then, can you?
We see that in the religious world today, so many different beliefs and religions think I can serve God however I see fit, however I want, and He'll accept my service, He'll accept my worship however I want to do it.
Right. And that's...
Not accurate.
Nope. Roger.
And then we're going to see this later too, in chapter 15, when they tried to change how they carried the Ark of the Covenant.
Exactly.
And that was where the silence of the Scripture was authority. It didn't say they couldn't carry it by a cart. But God didn't authorize that, and guess what happened?
Right.
The president was killed because that's the Ark of the Covenant. Because they were hauling it and it wasn't authorized by God.
But he did tell them how they should haul it. You know, and that's the thing. We will try to add to that and say, well, you know, he didn't say I couldn't do it this
He
way.
didn't say you couldn't, and a lot of people try to use that argument.
Right.
It's not valid.
But everything that we do today is because of what? What guides our life? Our everyday life. What guides that? When we wake up in the morning, how are we planning our day? How are we going about our daily task?
We humble ourselves before the Lord.
Absolutely.
Not our will, but His will.
Right. Do we start our day saying, Lord, what's your will for me today? I mean, when you really think about it, when you get up in the morning, is that the first thing on your mind is, Lord, what would you have me do today for you? Or is it, boy, I got this list and I got all this stuff to do. And Lord, just help me do all this stuff on my list. That's what Andrew was saying, wasn't it? That's what we have the attitude. Lord, I've got all this here on my list to do today. You help me do that. But what if that list is not His will? What if that list is not what He wants you to do that day? Are we open to follow His will? Or are we going to be so stubborn that we're going to get this list done? Hopefully He'll be with me, but if not, we're still going to get it done. Pride? Yep. Yep. And that's what happened with Saul. He said, I'm going to do it my way. And hopefully God will fall in line with me. That's not the way God's got it planned. We are to fall in line with His plan. Be open to what He wants us to do. But if we're honest with each other, that's really tough to do, isn't it? Every day. Janet.
What's sad about our lives in this life is that we never have something drastic God does to wake us up. I remember when I did my first dinners, and that's exactly so bad that I got triple and vertigo. And so when I wake up in the morning, I pray that plants aren't jumping off the table and,
Mhm.
it's healthy. And finally, one day I woke up and it was okay. And after that, I thought, every morning you wake up, you better thank God that you are back to what you call normal. And that reminds me to stay very secure.
Mhm.
I do that every morning because it scares me enough
Mhm.
to do that. But it shouldn't take us that much.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't take a drastic thing. It shouldn't take a major health problem. It shouldn't take the loss of someone in our life to wake us up. We should be totally aware of that right now. Who is in control of our lives? Who are we letting control our lives. And that's what happened in these, as we're going to read on, when we see the children of Israel as a whole. Boy, they hang in there pretty tight, don't they? And then what happens? Then they go their own way. Nah, I feel like this way is going to be better. And then God has to put something in their life that's drastic to bring them back. Exiling them. But right now, they seem to be kind of together on this deal, aren't they? They're all for David being king. Full support. He takes Jerusalem. He's building Jerusalem up. Basically the city of David. We know about Jerusalem today. It's still there, isn't it? It's established. It's still called the city of David. All of this stuff is happening for a reason. It's to show us in our present day what we need to pattern our life after. And it's given examples of as David comes into the kingship, it gives us a perfect example, a parallel with Christ when he comes in to kingship. Starting in verse 10. These were the chiefs of David's mighty men. They, together with all Israel, gave his kingship strong support to extend it over the whole land, as the Lord had promised. This is the list of David's mighty men. And then it goes through several of them throughout, kind of gives some of the men status in what they had done. Joshabim was chief of the officers. He raised his spear against 300 men whom he killed in one encounter. That's pretty mighty, killing 300 men with your spear. Next to him was Eleazar, one of the three mighty men. He was with David at Pas Dammim when the Philistines gathered there for battle. At a place where there was a field full of barley, the troops fled from the Philistines. But they took their stand in the middle of the field. They defended it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. Notice, who brought the victory? Was it this mighty man? Was it David? Nope, it was the Lord. The Lord brought about the mighty victory. 3 of the 30 chiefs came down to David to the rock at the cave of Adullam, with a band of Philistines, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. Now these are the 3 mighty men, and they went basically against the whole army there of Philistines. And they go there and they get a drink of water. They're not there to fight or anything. They just want to please the king, don't they? They're going to do whatever it takes to please him. I would like a drink of water from the well there by Bethlehem. And they do it. They do it. They go there. They get the water. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. "God forbid that I should do this," he said. "Should I drink the blood of these men who went at the risk of their lives? Because they risked their lives to bring it back, David would not drink it." Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty men. Can you imagine having that much dedication to David to go and risk their lives? And then they bring it back, and he pours it out before the Lord and says, "I can't drink this." This is amazing how these men are supporting me. How does that parallel going forward with Christ? Did Christ have 3 special men, Peter, James, and John, weren't they in the garden with him? All of them went to the garden, but he said, you guys stay here. You three come with me. You three come with me. Remember the transfiguration? How many was there with him? It was 3. Now, I don't know if that's something that has any meaning whatsoever, but isn't that amazing how that parallels? That there are 3 that are mighty men for David, and there was 3 mighty men for Jesus, the ones that he chose. And as we go on, we're going to look at 30-some men that were considered mighty men for David. And there's some names in there that I would not even come close to pronouncing correctly. But in that list of mighty men, is there one in there that you recognize? In verse 41, Uriah the Hittite. Now, who was that? Remember? Who was Uriah? He was a husband to who? Bathsheba. And what did he do with Uriah? Had him killed. Put him on the front line, knowing that he would be killed. And yet he lists him as what? One of his mighty men. It's amazing how when lack of faith enters our lives, how far we could go down. Because remember, David listed him as a mighty man, and yet he had him killed. Selfishly. Because he wanted his wife. Because he looked upon her when he was out on his porch in the evening. Exactly. Yep. He seen her. He wanted her. And we can't have her married to some guy. And yep, he is a mighty man. He's a great guy. Good warrior. But we got to get rid of him. And he does. He arranges it. He doesn't go out there and kill him, does he? His hand really wasn't in it, was he? Directly. And he tried several times, didn't he? Uriah was a fighting man. David had him come back. You know, you've been out on the battlefield a long time. You need to go and visit with your wife. You need to spend some time with your wife. What was Uriah's reply? Nope. Don't need to. I want to keep that fighting frame of mind. Oh, come on. Have a little wine. Go and enjoy some time with your wife. Nope, he wouldn't do it. So then David has to go further. He should have just left it alone, couldn't he? But nope, he had to go further. He sends him to the front of the battle, knowing that no matter how mighty he is, he's going to get cut down. So David got his way. Was that God's way? David paid for that, didn't he? David paid for that. When he had his child with Bathsheba, that child died. And he mourned terribly. I can't imagine letting it go that far. And yet, we can do the very same thing today. The very same thing. So it goes through several other men there, the great men. Joab was a chief of 3. He raised a spear against 300 men, whom he killed, and so became famous as the 3. Doubly honored above the 3, and became their commander, even though he was not included among them. And then it goes through a bunch of others there. One struck down 2 of the Moabites' best men. He also went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. He struck down the Egyptian, who was 7.5 feet tall. Although the Egyptian had a spear like a weaver's rod in his hand, Benaiah went against him with a club. He snatched a spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. Such were the exploits of Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada. He too was as famous as the 3 mighty men. He was held in greater honor than any of the 30, but he was not included among the 3. And David put him in charge of his bodyguard. And then it goes through all of the men there, clear on through the end of the chapter of 11. As we said there, Uriah in verse 41 was named among them. I think there's actually more than 30 named, and I don't know whether there was a reason behind that. They say sometimes men were named as predecessors of those that were slain. So I think there was like 37 of them. But to think that David had all of this, all of these great mighty warriors, everything supporting him, the children of Israel, how easy would it be to get a big head? To say that, you know what? I've got this under control. Who needs God? I've got all these mighty men. They're the ones that's winning this battle. They're the ones that are supporting me. How easy would it be to have that kind of prestige? And yet, where was David's faith? It was in God. It was in the Lord. And then when we read about the battles being won, is it really David winning the battles? It's God winning them. He's using David. When we fight our battles today and we win, who's winning if we're doing it for the Lord? God's winning. If we're not doing it for the Lord and we win, that's all the praise that we're going to get right there. Because if we're taking all the credit, there's not going to be any waiting for us later, is there? That's all we're going to get. Next week we'll look at chapter 12. We'll start in 12. I don't know how far we'll get there in that, but we'll look at, as Roger said, it's going to get pretty interesting on how they were moving the ark and all of the things that happened as they go on through this. We're going to see how God works with the whole children of Israel and David in being the kingship. So next week, thanks for all your participation.